Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, and if you follow me you know that we are really stuck in now. Not quite midway, but we're certainly we've gone a long way into the build of this incredible 1:6 scale huge Jagdpanther G2 from Armortek, and I am loving every minute of this build, and I really hope that you're enjoying the build along with me. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe because we've got a lot more to do on this incredible kit. And the last session I finished off the assembly of all the wheels, got them built and installed onto the lower hull, and also weathered, and I'm really pleased how that went, and I think it's starting to really come together and look amazing. So in today's session, a real respite from wheel building, and I'm really looking forward to this. It's a very crucial stage of the build. It's the assembly and installation of this sprocket, the main sprocket wheel itself. A lot to cover on this. There's a lot of intricate details and really essential to the, if you like, the performance of your finished kit, because if you don't install this correctly you can have issues with it going forward. So I'm going to try and explain in in a lot of detail what's involved and what we need to do to try and give your finished kit the best opportunity to perform at its best, and as Armortek intended. So there's a lot to cover today. It's really just going to be about the sprocket wheel today. Both sprockets in. If I get a chance I'll get them painted as well. We may not get on to installing them onto the lower hull, but we'll see how we get on. And if time is generous to us and I'll manage to get that far, then of course we will move on and look at the idler wheel. But ahead of doing any work, I have assembled a length of track, so there's 20 links, and I've done this, and I do this every time I get to this stage of the build, because it's important that when we assemble these sprockets themselves that we make sure that they mesh correctly with the track, and also when we put this sprocket onto the main drive case, that we can align the track with the wheels and make sure that it all works according to the instructions and how it should do in order for it to perform as we expect. And there's a lot to cover. Although it's a very small section of the build, there's a lot to cover. There's a few things that we need to know about, need to be careful of when we assemble these, just to make sure it is correct. So in the time-honoured tradition, I'm now going to reposition the camera and we'll get stuck straight in. Okay, so ahead of starting this, I've already given these a good clean. Just like to get all the residue off of all of these parts, because when we come to paint them we want a really good adhesion for the paint. First job of all of these things is firstly obviously go out and get all your components and all your parts, all your fixings, get ready. And as I said, I've got a length of track which I've already assembled, 20 links. And these this era of tank, Second World War era tank, very simple. You've got a track link, a pin, a washer and a split pin that sort of holds all that together, and that's nice and simple. Alternatively, the modern tanks have also got other parts that you will need to fix onto these, but this particular era of tank is very straightforward indeed. And I really enjoyed doing this small length of track, and there's a lot more to do, but it was very simple and very straightforward. So the reason why we do this is just to make sure that when we build this sprocket and it's all been assembled, we're able to use this to see if we can get this sprocket to mesh correctly with the track. And once we've got the sprocket meshed with the track, we'll be able to test the track links and alignment with the wheels once it's all on the tank as well. So that's that. We'll pop that out of the way for now. Key parts here, these gears, or I'm going to call them gears, these sprocket wheels themselves, they need to have the sharp edges removed around here, and that just helps with alignment and meshing with the track. So the only way to do that, as far as I'm concerned, a very simple way, is with a file, and then I'm just going to simply remove. You don't have to go crazy, just take the sharp edges off, and you'll know you've got about the right amount removed, because you'll see the shiny aluminium come through, and you have to do this now to all 4 of these. I mean, over time it will probably do it, it would wear through itself, but do it now before you paint it. Try and keep the face of the file as flat as possible. I could do this on my bench sander, but I don't like doing it because I like to have control, a lot more control over how much I take off. So that's that side done. We'll just flip it over now and do the other side. It is a relief, I know I've said it already, just a relief to be doing something different on the build rather than just wheel after wheel after wheel. And this is the part of the build I really love, when you have to do stuff like this. It just gives you more of a sense of achievement. I won't do the other one on camera. This is just to give you a bit of an idea of what's involved. So I'll finish this one off. That's that. And we can see that both sides now chamfered, all the arrows is removed. So I'm now going to go on and do this one, and I'll be back as soon as this is ready. So that's them both now ready. All the edges are, all the teeth I should say, are all chamfered. All the sharp edges have been removed on both of these. Now with the alignment of the actual sprocket rings themselves, I'm not sure if you can see it on here. Which side is that now? Where is it? Oh, come on, where are you? There it is. There's a small indentation there, and there's also one on this sprocket ring here. And these, when you install them onto the main hub itself, need to be aligned. They're your timing marks. And if you get these wrong, if you don't align these perfectly, the teeth can be slightly off, and we don't want that. So, and it's quite easy to do that because there's a multitude of fixings, as you can see on this ring here. And if you just go one off the center of that and it's out, you can see that you could end up inadvertently having the teeth, you know, poorly aligned, and you want them to be perfectly aligned, and that's how they need to be. So Armortek have helped us with that. So next thing would be we just need to install or position this so the rebated edge, this bit here, slides over the top of your main sprocket hub, and then I'm just aligning the holes up for now. And then with with the other side of the sprocket ring, I should say, I'm now going to just see if I can get those lined up. And I'm just going to use one of the rods that Armortek supply, just to make sure that I've got that lined up, and I can see that is. Now I'm just going to mark with a pencil across here and here. So when I take this away, that's where this should be aligned on the pencil line. I'm not sure if you can see that. So the pencil line is just there, and that just reminds me that you know, when I'll start bolting this together, that if I come off center, for instance, there, you can see that the pencil mark is not aligned. Move that round. I'm now back in the position it should be. So these all get fixed in with these tiny little M2.5 hex fixings, and as usual, I'm just going to pop some thread locker on that, push that through, and wind on the reciprocating nut the other side of it. Not tightening it up too much. I'm also now going to go to the opposite side. Just hold that in place, spin it round, and then just spin on a nut on that. keep doing this. I'm going to come around 90 degrees. Just going to get 4 of these on, and then think about going around to starting to tighten up. It's got such a lovely weight to it. Just feels quality, absolute quality. So now I'm happy with the alignment of that. I can go around and I can just tighten these ones up, just holding the back of that as normal. And again, don't try and over tighten, you'll know when it's tight enough. Now we can go on and continue putting the rest of these fixes in, which I'll do, and then I'll come back to camera so we can start looking at this sprocket ring here. So that's all 32 fasteners installed, and it just looks so good. It just looks so good. I mean, obviously this detail will be lost when it's all on the tank itself and the other sprocket ring is installed, but just beautifully thought out by Armortek. I know I keep saying that, but it never fails to impress me how beautiful these things are. The only other thing I've done, if you like, there was a sort of an overrun of the threaded part of the fastener here, probably about 3 millimeters. I didn't like that, so I've just used my bench sander to flatten all that off, so that's now back and flush to the nut itself. I don't think you need to do that, it's just a personal preference. Now we're going to go on and install the top sprocket ring. Now first things first, I want to make sure that I line up the pencil marks, the original pencil marks which are there, and then I can just have a look through that, and the timing marks are perfectly aligned, so it's exactly where it should be. Now I'm going to go and get the brass sheet of the cuttings and remove the parts that I need to complete this part of the installation. So this is the sheet of brass parts that you get with the kit, and they're normally packed inside where the certificate is and the instructions, and backed on a piece of cardboard. So the bits that we need now, I've just cut these 2 little pieces out here. These are a little brass plate that goes across the main hub cover. Don't need those just yet. And then we've got these 2 parts here, which will then effectively be installed onto the sprocket ring here. And these are retained. Now I've got a brand new Stanley blade in my knife. These are retained on the sheet. There's 3 little lugs you need to just cut. Get them as close as you can to the edge, and then once I've got these off the sheet, I'm going to pop this sheet back on its protective cardboard piece to stop it from bending, and pop that away until we need it again. So it comes on this cardboard piece here. Just going to pop that back onto that, and then that can go back in its protective bag until we need it. I'll put that over there out of the way for now, and then we can get back on, put that knife out of the way, and we can now look at completing this part of the sprocket build. So now we're going to just position this sprocket ring in its location like that, line up the pencil lines as we've done before. Then one of these brass pieces just goes into that position there. I'm going to pop this one out of the way. Then we have these M3 hex fixings which pass through into the main hub. Just want to get these in by hand. Again, just using thread locker. Just Just loosely putting these in for now. And there's 6 of these. And you've got all these fixings around here. For what I can work out, they're just glued into position. I'm going to double check that before we progress any further, but let's get this on anyway. Just going to wind that down into place. Not tightening off just yet. Just make sure that they all go in without too much trouble, and then we can go around and we can crank them tight. There's no mention of this being glued or anything like that. There's a little bit of bellying in it, but I'm guessing that once this hubcap goes on like that at some point in the future, that will hold all that down into place. So now we can go around and tighten all these up. Obviously just double checking, and I have already, but the pencil marks do confirm to me that the timing markers are correct. Again, just when you tighten these up, don't over tighten, because there's a danger that you could damage the thread. You'll know when you get the right level of resistance. And that's it. So now I'll just bring my little bit of track over, and we just want to make sure that's binding as it should. Seems to be fine. You want that to be meshing into the, I can see there, one of the track links has actually got some casting. It's unusual for that, but it's just this one. But that's fine. That's much better. So that's the sprocket meshing beautifully with the track. So happy with that. Pop that over there. Pop that on there. Now, around here is a whole series of these M2.5x2, these tiny little hex fixings that we used for these hubcaps, if you remember. They were just glued into position. I think that's all that's required for these as well, because there's no mention of it. The instructions don't ask for it to be glued, but it certainly seems as if that is the case. There's no, this is the correct, the rebate is on the outside, so everything seems correct. So it looks like we've just literally just got to glue all of these into place. With that, I'm actually just going to use some standard super glue, I think, on this. Go around and put a couple in to start with. I thought there'd be a requirement for more of these, so let's just pour some of those out. And they literally just glue into position. So one of the easier jobs. Don't want to do them all at the same time, so just putting 3 or 4 in at a time. And Obviously when this is all painted, primed and painted and everything else, will help sort of seal the fixings into place. An odd one, because you know, ordinarily I'd expect to be you know, putting a nut on the end of it, but there's no mention of that. I really hope I've interpreted this correctly. I'm pretty sure I have. I'm going to go on and just carry on doing this. So I'm going to carry on putting these in. It's actually really nice detail, isn't it? I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to carry on sticking these in, and then I'll come back to camera with the next step. Well, that's going to be the easiest job by far you'll ever come across on a build of this nature. These literally just glue straight into place, and that's it. And I've used the super glue, and that's fine. I've wiped off all the excess underneath, and that's nice and ready for painting. A couple of things to consider before we go ahead and paint this. I've obviously got to build the other sprocket as well, but a couple of things that we need to think about with painting. You do not want to get paint on the inside of this, because this needs to be just metal to metal, for the taper lock to work correctly. So I'm going to use one of these off-cut perspex discs I've got, and they used previously for some of the wheels, just to protect that. And when I take that off, it'll have a bit of a brass edge to it, but obviously when the hubcap goes into position, that'll be covered, so I'm not worried about that. And I'll also do the same on the back side of that. I just do not want paint getting down into this part here, so I want this to be clean, perfect metal. And then when it comes to the hubcap itself, I'll be painting this at the same time I'll paint this, but I'll also have to just think about the fixings, because you want to get paint on all the fixings, this little cross brace and the two little nuts. So what I might do is I might just pull that together now. I'm not going to put any thread lock or anything of that nature into it. I literally just want to hold it all together, and that'll just give me to think about when I paint this how to tackle that. If I can just get this to fit. See what? Why don't we just pop that in there for now? This is the thing when you're building one of these kits. You continually think about the sequence, the build sequence, the painting sequence. And I think that's a good thing, because if you don't, you'll end up having to revisit certain things. So I'm not doing this as a permanent fix. This is literally just holding it all there as a temporary. If I can just get my big old sausage fingers to work. There we go. I mean, actually, you know, when you look at it like that, and when I can just imagine this when it's all painted up, and this is going to be painted in a different colour than the yellow. So that's that. I'll cover that colour off in a while. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build the other sprocket. I might film that and then ask Ben to speed it up. It's just a repetitive task, exactly the same as what we've just done here. Hopefully that was of interest. So we'll crack on, and then I'll come back once I've got the other sprocket done. Okay, so that's both sprocket wheels done. Really pleased with that. The only thing I'm going to do, the only other thing I'm going to do today, I should say, is I'm just going to insert the bearings into the two idler wheels, because they need to be glued, they need to be set, and then once I've got those installed, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint the sprocket, main sprockets themselves, the caps and the idler wheels, and then once all of these are painted and the paint is cured, I can get them installed on the main tank itself. So first things first, I'm just going to give this a bit of a clean, just so that we can get a really good contact with the adhesive and the bearing itself. I'm also just going to use the opportunity to get in and clean some of the areas that at the moment have got quite a lot of residue on, and obviously when it comes to the painting, I want the paint to adhere to the metal correctly. I'm just using one of our many tools just to get into the little crevices. And that's already looking a lot better. So I'm just going to use this to go through. And I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera, but it's the residue that's left behind just from the manufacturing process, the CNC process. But once this is wiped clean, it sparkles. I don't know if you can see that, and that obviously gives me confidence that it's going to give a good surface contact with the bearing and the glue. So that's that one. I don't know if you can see the difference. I can. I'm not sure if it comes across in the camera. I do go through a lot of these wipes. So we'll just do this again. The temptation is to go ahead and get the sprockets painted in the same build session, but I really want, there's obviously a lot of glue being used to hold in those tiny little sort of fixings, if you like, the dummy fixings that go around this, and I really don't like painting that soon after installing, well, using glue. So I want that glue to go off fully cured. And then what I'll do before I paint them, I'll make sure I remove any other excess glue. Almost there now. Really important part of the job. Something that shouldn't be overlooked. And that's that. I'm just going to get some dry paper towel. Just give these a wipe, and then we can start thinking about getting the bearings glued in. So that's that, and these are the correct bearings, which are packed separately. 6002 2RS bearings. And I'm just going to lay these out, and I'm going to just check on the instructions. It says Loctite the outer, it says race here, but obviously face, to this, which is the idler wheel here. Recommend not to Loctite the inner face to allow easier removal of the idler in the future. So basically, unlike when we did the drive case, we will not be gluing the inside face of this, because I want this to slide over the idler wheel, which will be basically like that. Now I'm just going to basically just make sure that these fit. They do. No issues with that at all. It's perfect. Perfect. absolutely perfect. Now I am going to use the recommended Loctite 638 to put these in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply the glue to the inside face of the idler wheel itself. I always do that, I always forget to push that nozzle up. And just rotating the idler wheel around. I don't want too much glue. As I said before, just use the nozzle to spread the glue around. Just going to slide that down. I've got a piece of large wooden dowel which I'm just going to use to press that down to make sure that's in place. And hopefully, what I should have done, I should have done this face first, but no harm done. Now this glue is great glue, but it does take a bit longer to go off, so I should have done the shallower bearing install rather than the deeper one, because that's just exactly what happened. It's just popped out of my hand. But if I pop that in there like that, push that down onto my bench, go again with that, and then just push that, slide that over. Now the whole thing will just set in its own time. So this time around we're going to do the shallow face. Again, just using that nozzle to spread the glue around. Goes in, hold that, push that down on my bench. Hold it at the back. And again. And again, just pushing that bearing down into place, using my large wooden dowel just to push that down, and that's it. They will set in the fullness of time, and then once I'm happy with those, we can get those painted, and then we can get them onto the main tank. The only other thing is to consider at this stage the two idler wheel hubcaps. They're going to have to be painted, and as before, if you remember what we did on the wheels, we used these to protect the bearings. So I'll do the same again when it comes to painting, but this time round there are actual main fixings that go in there. These are like little M3 8mm hex fixing that go in here, so I'll probably just wind these in very gently, and then at least I can get paint on those, and then that'll be it. So that's about it, I think, for today's session. I'm just going to have a bit of a tidy up and I'll come back to camera. Well, that's as far as I'm going to go today in this session, but I'm really pleased with what we've managed to achieve. So both sprockets are completed. Really happy with how that went, and you know what, again, you know, just an amazing job by Armortek. No real issues in the construction of these at all, so simple. So I'm really pleased with how they've gone, and we've obviously got them meshed with the track. And again, if you're coming to this stage, definitely build a piece of section of track. I think 20 links is about right for you to be able to do what you need to do. We've also just put the bearings into the idler wheels, had them cleaned up. I also just put the caps on and just hand wound in some of the fixings so that when we come to paint these, I can use that to protect the bearings. And really, that is it. So the next time you see these parts, the idler wheels and the sprockets will be painted, and obviously I'll show you the colour at that time. I'm not going to film painting them because I have done tons of filming work with painting in the past, but I will, of course, when I get to the stage of painting the top section and the camo scheme and all that, I will of course paint that and film all of that. And then once these are ready to go on, I will obviously I'll show you how I go about doing the taper lock, and we'll also set the track and get all lined up with the wheels and the idler wheels. And then I really am thinking about doing the rest of the track, getting the track fitted, test fitted onto the tank, just making sure it's all running as it should do, set the tension on the idler wheel, then remove the track and then get the tracks painted. And once they're painted, I'm just going to put those away. And then once all of that is done, we will move on to restarting, if you like, or revisiting the beginning of the upper hull section. And there's a ton of work involved in that. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please give me a thumbs up. And if you are new to my channel, welcome. And I'm really pleased that you found me. And please subscribe, because we have got a lot more work to do on this amazing Jagdpanther G2 from Armortek. So I'll sign off by saying I'm Tony. I love building these kits, and thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in my next session. See you soon.